What's up, YouTube? Haven here. We are currently, as at least of the time of this recording, right in the middle of the the crafting event that is the Tokushu Haiki. I don't know how to say it. If you want 2 main vehicle rewards, you need to grind out 75,000 mission a day. So in this video, I will be sharing how I was able to achieve this goal and run down my thoughts and give you guys some tips on it. So here we go. All right, before we get too far into it, please take a moment and go ahead and like, subscribe, smash all those buttons you're supposed to, make the YouTube algorithm gods happy. And I promise you, from the bottom of my heart, I am very grateful to each of you who do subscribe, and it's very helpful, lets me know what you guys are interested. Go ahead and comment too if this is the type of video you want to watch, and if not, which ones. I am listening, and I want to make good content for you guys. It does take a good bit of work, and I don't want to make sure I'm not wasting my time. So I appreciate everybody who's already done the things for the YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you want to look forward to some other content I got coming up. So here we go, jumping on. All right, back on topic. To accomplish the event, getting 2 top-tier vehicle rewards, whether it be the ship, the plane, or the vehicle, you need to achieve 75,000 mission points per day. Now, luckily, this can be achieved in nearly any game mode this time around, and the standard multipliers are in place still. Realistic battles count more than arcade, but not as much as simulator. And the higher the rank of the vehicle that you use, the higher the multiplier. So for me personally, and this is going to kind of color the rest of my advice, so I'm mostly an air RB player, although I am probably splitting my time now between air RB and ground RB. But I am not a simulator battle player, and I recognize that given the multipliers, that might be the best option. But I think there's not enough people that do simulators, so I think this is going to be relevant to most people who are listening. So I can see myself dabbling in sim in the future, though. It seems like it's a lot of good fun. All right, so all that's to say that for me, air realistic battles, given its multipliers, given my skill level or lack thereof in other modes, I have been primarily focused on air realistic battles and how to most efficiently achieve the 75,000 mission points required per day. After all, it's a 2-week event, and my family would also like to see me during this time. So our stated goal then is achieve the highest possible mission score with the least amount of skill required, with the least amount of variability of score between missions, using the highest point multipliers. That's just a nice way of saying, score the most points with the highest multiplier, the fastest way possible, even if I'm playing bad, and ideally make it pretty consistent so that I have an idea of how long it's going to take, so I can work that in my schedule, right? So I've kind of tried to break this down into several sections: multipliers, skill / average score, speed efficiency, and then a bonus category of enjoyment. So some of those are going to blur together, but we're going to jump into it, and we're going to try and keep it somewhat broken up. But here we go. So let's quickly discuss multipliers first. So realistic modes are worth more than arcade. Simulators worth more than realistic. But as discussed, I don't do sim battles, so it's not really an option for me. So between realistic air and realistic ground battles, air has a 40% multiplier to your score, and ground RB has a 33% multiplier to your score. They do that by multiplying your mission score by 1.4 or 1.33. So I'm just making it a percentage. So air arcade is flat with no multiplier, and ground arcade actually gets a 7% penalty. They actually multiply your score by 0.93. So because of that, I'm going to be taking air RB. I think that's a pretty solid choice. I'm going to be taking air RB with its 40% multiplier. The second factor in the multiplier is the vehicle's rank. So there is a minimum rank of rank 3 for your score to count towards the event. Obviously, there's the option to use previous event vehicles. So we want to fly out as high of a rank of a vehicle as possible. Rank 7 and 8, which rank 8 is top tier, rank 7 is right before top tier, both have a 20% bonus versus the 20% penalty that is rank 3. So that's our goal. Let's play as high as possible. So, all right, moving on to skill. So, given the, and this is where it's going to start blending. It's going to be skill, average score, speed, and efficiency are all going to kind of tie into this topic, but I'm going to try and call out which one I'm talking about at the time. So, skill. So, given the period of time that the event happens, and given the number of points you need to achieve each day, you don't want to be reliant upon a certain level of skill for the event, if at all possible. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you run hot and then run cold, or you run hot when you're fresh and you've had your energy drink or whatever, and then you play like garbage the rest of the time when you're tired or whatever, you're burned out, your score will not be as high. I mean, it's just flat out. Like, you should play a low skill, high point strategy. So we should be finding strategies that are less dependent on skill. Easy points is the goal. We don't want to work hard during this grind. It's going to be a long grind. You're going to be tired at some point. You're not going to be at peak performance the entire time. So we want easy points. If we get easy points, that will increase our average score. If we increase our average score, that increases our efficiency, right? We want to have quick matches with high points. So for ARB, this is a long way of saying that ARB has several ways to score points. Shoot down enemy planes, bomb bases, and kill AI ground targets, right? The multipliers can only do so much. Your average score in the match is the most important factor. Then let the multipliers add on top of that. So inconsistent strategies of the three is killing enemy players who are actively not trying to be killed. And killing ground targets does require more skill than the third strategy, which I'm obviously going to recommend here, which is bomb bases. So I think it should be no surprise here. You should be watching the game in the background. What I'm suggesting ultimately is bombing bases with the high tier jet. And I really now want to give you sort of the strategy around that and what I ended up doing, which I think should work for everybody. So bombing bases in top tier has several considerations. One, obviously, is speed. Two is payload. And then I'm going to add a third option, which is the enjoyment factor, right? So, you know, I've stated in other videos, I'm not a base bomber guy. Like, it's kind of not my thing. I'll do it while I'm doing other work. I'll do it while I'm on meetings or whatever. But it is a very passive thing, and at top tier, it's not as passive as you would think. So I tried a couple different options. First option was the Milan. That works okay, but you only got one base. The next was the MiG-23, the German bomber, the BN version. Again, fast, gets to the base first in general, but you can only bomb one base, right? Another option is the Tornado IDS. Well, it's sitting at 11.0. Tornado IDS, keep it on the list. The other one I tried was the Harrier, the Sea Harrier, sitting at 10.7, which has 4 AIM-9Ls. At that point, I was still exploring, well, if I'm not going to bomb bases, can I kill the base bombers? But it was just so inconsistent. So, ultimately, I landed on the Phantom, F-4 Phantom C, which is an absolute, before this event, I thought was an absolute garbage plane. It's at 10.0. The flight performance isn't amazing. It has a high payload, which is what we're going to make use of, but it's not the most, the flight performance isn't amazing, and it has no flares. It's sitting at 10.0, right? I'll tell you why I ended up going with this. And it's for the average score and the speed of an efficiency, right? Obviously, the multipliers, check. Skill, bombing bases, check. Easy enough, right? When you get up into the Tornado IDS and the F-4 Phantom, their biggest benefit is that they can bomb 2 bases per mission. So just doing the back of the envelope math, I looked at it, and basically 2 bases is the equivalent in mission points to 2 kills in the match, which I think is absurd. Gaijin, please change it. But here we are, and we're trying to get through this event, right? So if I can take off with the F-4 Phantom, I can be one of the fastest planes, if not the fastest plane, depending on your loadout, which I'll get into. And I can bomb 2 bases. That alone right there is a like 4.5 minute mission. 4.5 minutes, I've scored enough points that is the equivalent of 2 kills, which is right around 1,250 points. And then that is going to be multiplied by 40%, and then multiplied again by 20%. So I'm looking at, in a 4.5 minute time period, I'm getting 2,000 total mission points towards that 75,000 total points. And so here's how we do it. So when I first started using the F-4 Phantom C, I played between it and the E variant. The E variant is an 11.0. It's got flares. It's more survivable. It also gets up tiers. Okay. And that applies basically towards the Tornado. They're both viable options. If you want to fly the F-4 Phantom E or you want to fly the Tornado, they can both get 2 bases. Harriers can get 1. Milans can get 1. The MiG-23 can get 1. I'm sure there's any number, like people are taking F-104, out, and they'll bomb the base, and they'll get most of the base. But what I liked about, and why I think the F-4 Phantom C is the winner at the end of this, is because you can get 2 bases and still carry 4 missiles and a gun. I'll show you the loadouts for that. Because in the previous events, before Gaijin stretched the maps out, Harriers would always get to the bases first. It could be and A5s, and some other things could really, anything that had high acceleration off the runway could get to the bases first. Now with the maps being bigger, the F-4C longer term can actually overtake any Harrier that takes off ahead of you, unless they're running like men, some of them. And if you wanted to counter that, you could run men, you could run 9 miles. But that goes to my final point, which is enjoyment. What I like most about the F-4C is my enjoyment. If I could get to a base, I could bomb it, I could bomb another base right after it, and then I could dogfight. And usually, if I had made it that far, and if I hadn't caught an all-aspect missile from the front from an Su-25 or an A-10A or something like that, I was generally behind their front line. I could pull up, gain a little altitude, make a 180-degree turn, and find enemy targets from there. And that was the enjoyment part, right? So the first 4.5 minutes, getting to the bases, that's the grind. Then you get to enjoy yourself. You get to fire off 4 missiles. I got pretty good with the gun by the end of it. It's like a bullet hose. You just kind of like spray it over people. It's a lot of fun. So this is my recommendation, is, check out these bombers, these jet bombers that have been kind of overlooked. Like, no one gets a air spawn after a certain BR range. And, if you're grinding points, check it out. And I really enjoyed it. It kind of balanced the grind with the dogfight. So check it out. Let me know what you think. I'll give my loadouts here on the screen. There's a couple different options. There's 9-minute min fuel, no missiles, only bombs. I think that's kind of like, I think it's cheap. It's the cheapest strategy, right? If you want to talk about no skill, it is min fuel. You won't even make it back to base to refuel. It's like basically you're a bot, right? Take off with enough bombs, the minimum number of bombs to get 2 bases, and then you basically run out of fuel, and you don't have a gun, and you don't have missiles, and while you're loitering over there, you can't kill anybody. So completely unenjoyable. Effective, maybe. Unenjoyable. Do not recommend. But I wanted to keep the ability to get 2 bases. So the other loadouts I were exploring were, okay, well, I need 20 minutes of fuel because I need to get back to base after bombing these. Well, if I'm taking 20 minutes of fuel, I'm heavy. So now I need maybe a chance to defend myself. Okay, well, let's take 4 AIM-9Es. Those are pretty light. They're pretty easy to take. Okay, well now I have just missiles, but man, I missed opportunities to get some gun kills because man, I mean, I was on the guy, but I couldn't finish him off because I'd already shot my missiles or because they had flares or whatever. So I got to work this gun in there, and I played with it for a while. I'll give you my loadout here. This is enough to get 2 bases. You are heavier. You should run 20 minutes of fuel, and you will get killed because you're running this, especially in an up tier. But I got to tell you, in an up tier, you're already kind of hosed anyway. But if you're willing to take an all aspect missile or an undodgeable missile to the face every now and then, especially in up tiers, this is a really fun loadout. If I pulled it off, I could have some really good games. Generally, I would get to 1 base either way, maybe 2 bases either way. But if I could get 2 bases and then dogfight, everything else was a bonus. Everything else felt like a gift. Everything else felt like bonus points. I had secured my 1,250 points. I knew that was going to be 2,000. If I get shot down after that, let's go on to the next one, right? I got to grind this event. So I never wanted to return back to base. I felt like that was a waste of time. I always wanted to stay in the fight as long as possible. I wanted to help my team. I wanted to secure additional kills for additional points. This was the perfect balance of guaranteed points in the short amount of time and then also enjoyment afterwards where I could participate in playing the game, right? Like, I mean, if you want to bomb bases, that's fine. Maybe that's what you want to do. But ultimately, dogfighting is the fun part. So this was a nice mix of both. I highly recommend this loadout. I highly recommend you to try this strategy in a future event. Obviously, I think my channel's small enough that it's not going to matter. If a bunch of people adopt the strategy, Gaijin will change the rules, or maybe even map changes will change the strategy. And so I'm publishing this late. I realize that, but be thinking about this sort of thing the next event, because if you don't spend some time and think about how to maximize these events, it's going to be a lot more painful. I remember playing rank 3 vehicles for these events and not really understanding how much work was ahead of me versus playing top tier jets or even top tier ground. Like, really, the multipliers should be really thought about, and your strategy should be thought about. If you're really interested, if you have a stated goal of completing this event, if you want to just play. That's also fine. But if you are going to participate in the event in earnest, I recommend some strategizing, and this is a strategy and a strategy I use for this event. That's all I got, yeah, guys. Good luck. Good luck out there. I hope you did well. I hope you're watching this in the future, and this is still a good strategy. Enjoy it. I really warmed up to the Phantom, and I think it's a great plane now. You do die very easily, but it's now one of my favorites. I get a lot of flight time in it now, and we'll see you in the next one.